Hello, my sweet and precious children. We are back for lesson 51, Algebra 1/2, Pre-Algebra. We're going to be talking about decimal parts of a number. Guys, if you're in my class, you had best be writing notes and putting them in your notebook. What we're going to start with today is the words what means X. Okay, when you see the word what, that just means X. It means what we're looking for, okay? Then, let me see if I can focus that. Good. The word of means multiply. Why is that not focusing? I'm so sorry, you guys. Nope, and then I moved it. Okay, the word of means multiply. The word is means equals. Why is this important? Because today, guys, we're on lesson 51. Like I said, in this book, we are on page 166. We're going to talk about some examples here. Example number 1, and I'm showing you how I want your notes to look, right? But be copying down what I'm working on. Example number 1 says, what decimal part of 240 is 90? What decimal part of, so I'll write it down for the first few. What decimal part, helps if you spell correctly, of 240 is 90. Here's how this works. The word what means X. So X, so what decimal part, and the word of means multiply, times 240, I know how to write that one, is means equals 90 degrees. Bam, we have an equation that we can solve. Take a look here, we've got X times 240, the other opposite of X, or I'm sorry, the opposite of multiply is divide. So we're gonna divide this guy by 240, and the reason why we do that is this cancels out with this and we get X all by itself. Of course, what I do to one side, I gotta do to the other. 240, lob off those zeros, equals 9 over 24. We can reduce that by dividing both the top and the bottom by 3. That gives me 3 over 8. Took me a second there. Ooh, it was a long break apparently. So 3 over 8. So what decimal part of 240 is 90 degrees? Well, we have the fraction, but they want the decimal part, right? So either you can use a calculator or you can do, yeah, you guys can use the calculator because you passed the lesson. So if we do 3 divided by 8, we end up with 0.375 equals 0.375 or 375 thousandths. Example number 2, it's time to move on. 4 tenths of what number is 72? All right, we're gonna read this sentence and apply the words that we know that we can exchange for math words. So 4 tenths, all right, 4 tenths. You can write it like this, or you can write it as a decimal. And since we're doing decimal parts, I should probably do that. So 4 tenths looks like this, right? 4 tenths of means multiply. Since we have a decimal there, I'm not gonna use a dot for multiplication because that's kind of a pain. I'm gonna use of, okay, so we have 4 tenths of what number, that means X, right, is, that means equals 72. All right, so we have 4 tenths times X, the opposite of multiply is divide, 0.4, so 4 divided by 0.4, because if I do that, these cancel out, but what I do to one side, I must do to the other. So X equals, if we do 72 divided by 4, we would get 18, right? And in this case, we have 1 digit behind the decimal, so we would have 1.8, 1.8, just to make sure. No, we wouldn't have 1.8, it would go the other way. It would be 180, I'm sorry, I had to think about that. So use calculators or do it by longhand. If we did it by longhand, just remember that this would go under the table 72 and this would be 0.4, right? And we can't have a decimal out here, so we would move this over 1 spot and then move this over 1. So it would be 4 into 720. So it would be 180. Anyway, lengthy explanation there. Let's look at example number 3. Example number 3. There we go. Okay. Example 3 says 4 tenths of 72 is what number? 4 tenths. We can write that as a decimal as 0.4. Of means multiply. 72 means equals. What number means x? Well, guys, the x is already by itself. We just have to do the math part of this. If we do 72 times 4/10, we end up with 28.8. 28.8 equals x. So that would be, so 4/10 of 72 is 28.8. All right, guys, pause the video, do the practice problems. They are on page, halfway down the page on page 167. Come on back when you're done. All right, 7/10 of what number is, you know what, for those of you who don't have the book, you can pause that there, A, B, and C. Beautiful. Pause those, write it down. 7/10 of what number is 14/100? 7/10, oh, 7/10, we're doing fraction, or we're doing decimals, not fractions. I don't know why I keep doing that. 7/10 of means multiply. What number means x is 14/100, like that. All right, we need to get x by itself. Currently we're multiplying. The opposite of multiply is divide. If I divide these guys, this cancels out, this cancels out. What I do to one side, I have to do to the other. 0.14 divided by 0.7, we end up with 0.2. I don't know why it's late. I had to use a calculator for that. 0.2, because 14 divided by 7 is obviously 2, right? All right, so B, 7/100, and remember 7/100 is, looks like this as a decimal, right? 7/100 of 86 times, actually since we're using a decimal, I will use parentheses, of 86 is what number? Well, this is a nice one because the x is already by itself. We just have to do the math there. So if we do 0.07 times 86, we end up with 6.02 equals x. All right, C. And guys, these practice problems either need to be on your notes or at the top of your homework. Good gravy, I've had to say that 800 times. What decimal part of 72, so is 30.24. So what decimal part of 72 is 30.24? 30.24. Well, we're multiplying these two things, and the opposite of multiply is divide. If I do that, these go away, and I get x all by itself. But if I do it to one side, gotta do it to the other, gotta do it to the other. Grab your trusty calculator. 30.24 divided by 72 ends up with 0.42. So 42/100. Those are your answers, guys. Great work. That is the end of the lesson. So get on those, and I will see you in class. Thanks, guys.